Hi, everybody, and welcome to Fearless Female Entrepreneurs, where you will receive expert advice and inspiration from 20 fierce feminine leaders and entrepreneurial experts who want to help you supercharge your power as a feminine thought leader and ignite your own powerful rising. So today I am so excited to be here with Rachel, who goes by the pen name Aeolian Heart. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you so much for being a part of this event.
Thank you, Jocelyn. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, likewise. And I want to take a moment to just welcome everybody who's joining us live here. So if you're on the call live, please go ahead over to the chat and put your name and location in the chat so we can see where you're calling in from and we can see who's on. It's always, hi, Cynthia. Welcome, welcome. It's always so great to see our global group coming together here. So don't be shy. Share your name and location. And while you all are doing that, I will introduce Rachel here. Okay, so Rachel is an astrologer, spiritual alchemist, and teacher who writes under the romantic name Aeolian Heart. She believes that astrology is magic and has written more than 15 classes that have inspired thousands of students to attune their lives to the rhythm of the planets. She also publishes a free weekly forecast that synthesizes the themes of the astrological weather with popular culture, poetry, history, and art. She is in love with her creative work and is passionate about using astrology to help others aspire to fulfill their highest potential. And Rachel, I love your topic for today, which is setting course by the stars, how I became a stellar entrepreneur. Wonderful. So could you begin by sharing with us a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to become an astrologer?
What inspired me to become an astrologer? Well, it's like, that's kind of, it's a multifaceted journey that is difficult to focus on a particular, like one reason or one inspiration. What I can say is that the subject always interested me. My dad, when I was growing up, had a big, astrology book. It was a big, hardbound, thick astrology book. And, he was not an astrologer, and he was always kind of reticent to dive into that kind of world too deeply. But he did have experience with this synchronistic relationship between one's birthday and one's characteristics or personality traits. And so he always raised me to kind of have an eye on it, with caution, of course. My mother was very religious. She was against it, so when I became a teenager, that made it very delicious, It's like, I'm not like my mom. And so I started, studying astrology as a teenager, which didn't go very far. I was just a teenager. But what I did derive from it was, sun signs. And I was fascinated with the fact that my best friend was a Pisces and I was a Virgo. And those two are opposite signs. And so I started like putting things together, and in that way, like finding the significance in what that meant. And I was in this opposing relationship with my best friend, but we got along so well. So I saw how we like kind of completed each other, like yin yang. And then I've told this story before. When I entered college, I just threw astrology out because I was like, I want to be a rational, reasonable, scientific type person. Even though I was still into the humanities and poetry and art, I did not want to be seen as foolish or superstitious. So I caved to that pressure. I didn't get back into astrology till probably 24, 25. And then that study really started blooming and opening up and getting very deep. But I didn't think I would become an astrologer. I thought this was just one of my interests. The time that I really decided to put my hand to this was when I got an astrology reading from a very prestigious astrologer. And that was a whole journey of synchronicity. This person came to the place where my husband and I practice Qigong together. And it's an institute of internal arts, Taoist internal arts. And we had been going there for a couple of years. And this prestigious astrologer walks in, and I got a natal chart reading. And at the end of it, I had felt like a little bit bummed out because I have a debilitated placement of Jupiter in my second house of money and security. And I was a student and I was really struggling with money at the time and had been for many years. And so I sort of asked for a little bit of counseling on how to look at this placement of Jupiter without getting depressed, without getting frustrated, without feeling like fatalistic about my lack of financial security. And instead of like finding a way to do that or giving me some kind of insight about how things can develop or what kind of strengths this Jupiter has, I was just sort of told, I was dismissed and kind of told, well, this is the idea is that you don't really break out of this. This is what you have to work with. So it was kind of like just get used to it. And I hate that. I really hate that. So I got so angry and I realized that I could do better because I already read natal charts for my friends. It was super safe and casual. But I realized, like, wait, I do this for fun. I love reading natal charts. It gives me no end of joy. And the only thing that was preventing me from thinking that I should do that as a job was the idea that there was something really, there was a wide gap between me and people up here. And so when I got that reading and I felt insulted and kind of depressed, I was like, I can do better. So that's actually why I started doing astrology professionally. It was not from the most optimistic, cheerful story. It was actually a feeling of being negated that made me rise to the occasion. So that's when I decided for sure, like, this is happening.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, and that's kind of how the call came through for you, right? That you're like, people deserve better than this. I can give them what they really need.
You never tell somebody for any reason. It's not because you're like lying to people or flattering people. There's no reason to tell someone that they can't get out of a rut. This is philosophically asinine. It's just not true. I know it's not what astrology is for. I have since come to understand the strengths and virtues of my Jupiter. Because I was told that there were none, I was like, I'm going to find them, and I'm never going to tell anybody that it's hopeless. It's hopeless. I'm never going to do that. And I have not. Like, the foundation of the way that I read for people is based upon, I give a fair analysis. I talk about the weaknesses and the shadow side of certain placements, certainly. But I also emphasize that we have free will, we have creative power, and there's always something good about the planetary placement, even if it's considered quote unquote debilitated, weak, or difficult. Like we know from, other areas of life, if you're lacking something or you're challenged by something, you tend to develop extra character or extra strengths in other areas that make up for that. So that's actually why I became an astrologer, because I felt so hurt and so sad after I got that reading, that I just wanted to do better. And I believe that I do. And I'm not bragging. I just believe that I care a lot about the people I read for. And so I've never left anybody feeling sorrowful after talking to me. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did your interest in astrology then turn into a business?
Oh my goodness. So again, it's so weird how life just like twists and turns, so many threads. It's difficult to summarize it, but the first wonderful thing that happened to me, it all happened through synchronicity, and almost like I was like a blind person that was led somehow by intuition and just circumstances shifting. Oh yeah.
Oh, 1 second. So we're getting some comments that your sound is really low and the video isn't going to you when you're speaking. Is there any way in your settings to, honestly, I don't know how that would be, but in like the settings on your computer to turn up your sound? That's interesting. Or is there a microphone that you could put closer to yourself or something like that?
Is that better?
Okay.
Oh boy.
It corrected itself right before you stopped her. Okay, let's go. Let's give it another try here. We'll see how we do.
Okay. So can people hear me? Can you hear me, Jocelyn? Is everything okay?
I've been able to hear you. Yeah. I
No?
guess the audio is coming through a little bit low for me, but it's not extreme. But I guess maybe it was enough that Zoom wasn't flipping over to you when you were talking.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know. Is it not, it's not showing me on the screen? Oh my goodness. Um, is that working?
Maybe it's just delayed and switching over to you. I would just say then yeah, maybe just try to speak as close to the computer as you can.
I will. I'll speak as
We'll
close to
go
the
from
computer.
there.
There we go.
Okay, people are saying it's better, so that's good.
I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah, no worries.
So, where was I? Where was I? I don't remember what we were talking about.
Yeah, I was just, so I had asked you, and then I was distracted by the question, so I don't know exactly what you had just said, but I had asked you, how did your interest in astrology turn into a business? How did you?
Okay, so, well, I had a lot of friends and loved ones support that, you know, that idea, that notion, and I was really afraid to start because I thought, like, after I graduated from grad school in 2015, I was still stuck in the same job that I had been stuck in for 5 years. This was a very part-time nonprofit grant writing job. And it really brought me no joy at all. And I was stuck there for so long and I was getting really depressed. They would not give me full time work. I was a contractor, so independent contractor, no benefits, no point at all to really like putting as much effort into it as I was. Writing grants is very boring and I had gotten good at it, but I had no desire to take that anywhere else. I wanted to do something like creative. I wanted to teach and I wanted to write. And so I really started doing astrology readings on the side as a hobby, but I didn't get paid. I would always give them for free because I was afraid to ask people for money. But I knew this woman who ran a vitamin shop in my neighborhood, and she loves me. She's my friend. She's a wonderful lady, and she got me my first client. She told somebody that was her client to call me, and she offered to let me use her space. So it answered all of my problems. I had a space, I had a paying client, and it was somebody that was vetted by a person I trusted. So
Wow.
I was able to break out of the fear and actually go do it for the first time. And I got paid $100, which I had never been paid to do anything that I liked in my life. This was August of 2015. Never gotten paid for a joyful job. Um, right after that, I got so inspired. I was so filled with this joy and this excitement that I decided to plan this magic ritual with my husband. And this ritual was to ask Mercury, who was going to be transiting the sign of Virgo, his sign of exaltation, meaning Mercury's best placement in the zodiac. If you're going to work with mercurial energy, which is the planet of communication, writing, transmission of information, and also commerce and money, if you're going to work with Mercury, this is the best season to do it. So I designed this little ritual and we went to the beach, Malibu, and we asked Mercury to help with allowing me to become a writer and an astrologer that could share my work with the world and be appreciated. And after we did that ritual, I started my blog. And that was another whole thing. I was so scared to like share my writing because I was actually super shy. I still am, but I'm less shy now. And I shared my first article. This was like the last week in August, I believe, or the first week in September. I can't remember. But anyways, it was late summer 2015. I put my first article up. And I remember I got like 700 views
Wow.
of this article. And that was like, I was like blown away and my heart almost stopped. I'm like, 700 views. My work has only ever been read by like my professors, maybe a few students in my classes. So it was like expanded from 5 people looking at work I've written to 700.
Wow.
So first article. So I kept it up and I was just sharing my articles everywhere. very difficult for me. It did not feel natural and it did not feel good. I was really scared because I was anticipating all kinds of criticism and all kinds of like laughter. And I anticipated humiliation because that's what we all go through when we're growing, you know? And it started building momentum, like right away, building momentum. And I'd never done anything like that before, never set up a blog. And I just wrote about astrology. I wrote about what was going on in the week, and I used to create context and ambiance and to illustrate the planetary energies for people. I would always include some kind of history, philosophy, poetry, pop music, and beautiful art to create this ambiance that would create like an experience, like a full-fledged experience, rather than just like technical boring astrology stuff that people don't understand anyway unless they are studying it themselves. So I wanted it to be like, even if you don't study this stuff yourself, you pick up on the vibe, you feel it. And I started getting clients in October. I started getting clients. So that's how I became a professional astrologer. Yeah.
That's such an awesome story. Yeah. And just amazing. And like that first post that got 700 views, like what an amazing confirmation from the universe that like, yes, you're on the right path, you know?
God, I know, exactly. And that experience also, like, I believed in magic already.
Yeah.
I did. I already believed in magic and I believed in astrology, and I knew that astrology was magic, which is what I teach all the time. Astrology is magic. But that ritual, it was so simple. I wrote a poem to Mercury, and then I asked for what I wanted at the right time in a beautiful place that I love. And the doors that opened were insane. And then I realized, like, well, Jupiter, planet of expansion and growth and good fortune, is in my 10th house of career. That was also going on at that time. So I didn't realize before how much I could open up to that and grow. But the planets were in this perfect place to help me do that. And I opened up my sails and allowed them to carry me a little bit, and things really, really started flowing. And so the first year I was just busy writing. And the second year, I realized I have to teach a class because I am a teacher. I'm a teacher certified in middle school and high school, and I also taught in grad school. I was a TA, and so I did a lot of I taught college classes, and so I was like, and I'm a personal tutor as well, so I'm like, I gotta teach. So I created a class that was all about astrological magic, which is how to do what I did to start my business. Just like look at where the planets are and align your intentions and your magic to the weather, which really takes a lot of the gravity off of your shoulders and allows you to kind of flow with the currents. It's like a combination of, you know, using your will to create change, but it's not as forceful. It's more wu wei. It's more like, it's really more Taoist in that way, because you just know where the wind is blowing and you just kind of bend to it, you know? So that was the first class that I ever taught, was Discovery, the Art and Soul of Astrology, which was all about how to use magic in alignment with the planets, which was the original intention of astrology in the first place. Astrology for natal chart readings, to create like a personal profile of people, that's a much more modern iteration of astrology. Originally, it was about knowing how to time things. You know, only royalty got their natal chart read. You know, average people did not do that at all. So,
yeah. Well, could you tell us more about astrological magic? And there are some questions popping up in the chat that I think are relevant to what I'm asking you. Like, does this mean there are times when it's less wise to ask Mercury for help? And and can you speak with all different planets? So could you tell us more about that whole topic of astrological magic?
Yes. I like to use the metaphor of planets being like fruit. And there are times when fruit is green and it's not quite the right time to eat it, though there are some ways to eat green fruits, cook green fruits that are delicious and they have a certain medicinal purpose. So it's not to say that green fruit is bad. But when you really want to enjoy a delicious fruit in its best state, you want to wait till it's ripe. And the planets have different signs in which they ripen, come into their full power. And so those are the times that you want to work with those energies so they're at their maximum potency. So with Mercury, for example, Mercury is very, very strong in Gemini and Virgo. So when Mercury is transiting those two signs, he's in his rulership as well as his rulership exaltation, which is Virgo. Mercury in Virgo is the most powerful placement of any planet in the zodiac, because it's the only time where a planet finds a sign that is both rulership and exaltation. It's a unique experience.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's unique. Mercury is a very interesting planet. Right now, Mercury is in Pisces. Pisces is the opposite sign of Virgo, like I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. And so Mercury in Pisces is not the time to call on the powers of Mercury to help you communicate better, get where you want to go and travel. It's not the best time to have Mercury help you with commerce. So it's not that Mercury in Pisces has no gifts and no beauty. It does. It absolutely does. This season of Mercury in Pisces is very dreamy. It's about dissolving into dreams. It's about recollecting the past. It has a lot of spiritual value. But for magic, you want to use these primary colors, these powerful archetypal energies to sort of move things forward. And so Mercury in Pisces is not the time to ask to become a better writer, to ask to have your voice heard clearly. Like, that's not the time to work with Mercury. So that's just how it works. There are times when the planet is sleeping or is just blossoming or just budding, but it's not ripe yet. And there are times when it's ripe. So for Mercury specifically, we've got Gemini and we've got Virgo. Right now, we have a lot of planets in the sky that are very ripe. Saturn is in his sign of rulership, Capricorn. A ripe Saturn is not the most juicy, sweet, delicious experience. It's a kind of cold, hard, disciplined, high pressure experience, but nevertheless, Saturn has many virtues. And when Saturn is in Capricorn, there are many things that we can access that are very positive. Discipline, a better relationship with time, creating foundations and solid bases to build our future upon. Certainly, there's a lot to be learned from ancestors, history. Saturn in Capricorn has many gifts. Jupiter is also in his sign of rulership right now, Sagittarius. And so Jupiter is very ripe. And working with Jupiter right now really makes it easier to grow and expand, to become more prosperous, more fertile, more creative. And certainly because Jupiter in Sagittarius is associated with one's spiritual path, with one's experience of accruing wisdom, there's a lot that can really blossom in terms of one's spiritual growth while Jupiter is in Sagittarius. So that's how it works. Last year, Jupiter was in Scorpio. That's not the best time to ask Jupiter for his golden blessings and his light. Jupiter in Scorpio was, that was the exploration of the shadow. That was a dark night of the soul, a great crisis. It was purifying, and it's beautiful things happened for sure. But that would not be the most ideal time to ask for Jupiterian energies to bless you. It's also not the worst time. Jupiter is debilitated in the sign of Capricorn, which is where my Jupiter is placed natally. So when Jupiter is in Capricorn next year, that's going to be a difficult time to work with Jupiterian energies. That's basically how it works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely makes sense to me. I'm looking to see if anybody has responses in the chat, because some of that was based on questions from the chat. And I know, well, could you share with us how you're using this astrological timing to increase your success in your business? I know you had mentioned with a even a launch that you have going on right now, that these astrological energies are really playing a part of that. Would you be open to sharing a little more about that?
Yes. First, I want to make sure that this microphone is working.
Yes.
Hopefully that will improve.
Yeah, that sounds louder and clearer.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Okay. So is it okay if it just hangs here?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. Timing. So this week, well, first of all, it starts with the new year began with Saturn conjunct the new moon. And that was like a very heavy beginning to a new year. I said that the new year began feeling old and tired. So it was not the ideal feeling of like exploding into a new year. It wasn't like the baby new year feeling that we all know and love from the past. And shortly after the new year, like by January 3rd, my husband and I both came down with a serious case of bronchitis, and I was sick for like almost 2 weeks. I cracked my rib and was in pain until like basically last week, like lots and lots of pain, could barely breathe. So needless to say, I was delayed in my ideal timing for things. And I am in the process of registration is still open for my new class, Spiritualized, which is all about spiritual alchemy and working with the planets at a microcosmic level to harmonize your relationship with the cosmos, and it's a really intense, wonderful class, and I am so proud of it, and I'm so excited to start teaching it. But I had intended to launch it at a completely different time to be in alignment with much smoother energies, but life gets in the way. We can't always have everything perfect, so I had to launch it during the week that Venus, planet of attraction, money, beauty, and art, was inching closer and closer to Saturn, the planet of negation, limitation, hardness, time, a very dense, very heavy gravitational pull kind of energy. So Venus was coming up against Saturn when it first opened. And I had known that would be difficult, but I had hoped that it wouldn't be that big of a deal, because I didn't have any other time. This was just what I had to work with. So I watched registration open, and I have grown accustomed to like a certain pattern of sales, like certain amount of students show up they sign up on the first day. And then I've gotten used to a certain rhythm. I've just seen it over and over. So I have assumed that it's some kind of natural pattern to things. When this registration window opened, it was the slowest, most laborious trickle I've ever seen. And it was really scary, because I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe nobody's interested in this at all. For the most part, I was just kind of very concerned. I'm like, maybe I have really messed things up, because I shouldn't have launched when Venus was conjunct Saturn. She was coming up on that, then finally perfecting. So I decided to keep the registration window open, because right after Venus left her conjunction with Saturn, things started to pick up. They started to open up. And when the registration window closed on the 19th, then people started writing me and saying that they wanted to be in the class. So I was like, all right, I will. Yeah. like, okay, I'll keep it open till the 19th. Today, I'm sorry, the 22nd, which is today. And Venus is conjunct Pluto today. And that's a completely different energy. Venus conjunct Pluto actually, it really transforms things, and it brings desires up to the surface. And Pluto is also the planet associated with alchemy, which is what I'm teaching. So I thought, isn't that beautiful? I will just keep the window open until Venus conjoins the planet of alchemy, and we'll see how that goes. And everything's picked up beautifully, and we have a really wonderful group, and I'm really excited. But I thought it was interesting that the week before I was going to talk with you about timing one's business, I had this kind of, negative experience with having timed things wrong. And so I do help people with that, because if you're in good health and you have choices about when you do things, you can save yourself a lot of grief and a lot of time and some effort, a little bit of effort, if you time things correctly. So I did bad timing, and I knew it, but oh well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fascinating that, even these things and you knew what the effect might be, but still you were thinking, well, it'll be okay. And then it still, it shows up so strongly. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Like it's incredible. And, right now, Sagittarius is in my first house. So that basically means that my sense of identity and how I put myself out in the world and the amount that I'm seen in the world is being expanded and illuminated, which is wonderful because it is. I feel like I'm talking to a lot more people. I'm out and about more. Like my business is growing through people wanting to talk to me and see me more. And but that was horrifying back in January when I was really sick, because I was like, I don't want to be seen by anybody. I want to hide. So there was a lot of conflict going on. But like I said, the year started out really heavy, and it makes perfect sense that I would get sick. I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have one more question for you before we open up for audience Q&A. Can you tell us about the alchemical business model?
Yes. So because of the Mercury story that I started my business on, last September, I wrote a class and taught a class called Elemental, Getting Down to Business with Mercury in Virgo. And it was a really amazing experience. I created a whole community of people starting online businesses and doing group rituals to work with mercurial energies to grow their business. And I've had so many people writing me with like little and large successes since then. Getting things launched, getting products made and sold, and getting ideas for a business in the first place. People at all levels were there. And I taught this through what I called the alchemical business model. And I said alchemical because Mercury in Virgo is associated with the art of alchemy, both the physical and the spiritual and imaginative elements of alchemy. And one of the really foundational aspects of alchemy is this idea that every organic substance has three parts. Just as we say we are body, mind, and spirit, or that we are mind, spirit, or we are body, spirit, and soul, alchemists believe that every single organic compound, everything that you see, a stone, a plant, has three components, and that is sulfur, salt, and mercury. The sulfur is the soul, the mercury is the spirit, and the salt is the body. And what alchemists do, physical alchemists, operational alchemists is what they're called, they create medicines out of plants and stones and metals and things like that by actually separating that substance into its three parts and releasing the spirit of it. That's how an alchemist can create a medicine from a metal, because the metal that would poison us is no longer in the substance that they create, because they separate the mercury and the sulfur and the body, and then they begin to purify it and refine it. So I created what I called the alchemical business model. And that was basically the idea that you have to make any successful business, you must have labor, that's the salt, that's the body, the physical work, message, and passion. So the message is the spirit and the passion is the soul. And the lessons were built around that. Like, you must identify these three components and figure out how to fulfill them, or how you can express them in order to be a success. And you also, you need to combine that basic principle of labor, message, and passion with the idea of knowing, loving, and trusting, being what you want your customers and your audience to have for you. So you want your audience to know you, your customers to know you, then love you and trust you. You have to work very hard on yourself in order to accomplish that. You actually have to be loving towards them, and you have to also trust them a little bit. It's this reflexive relationship. When you combine those three things, your duty to your audience is to get them to know you, to love you, and to trust you. And you are doing the work, you are creating a message, you are doing the labor, and you are using passion to drive that. When you combine that, you get the core strength that you need to build a business. And it doesn't matter what kind of business it is. It works for every idea, every inspiration, every style of business, not just online. But this was particularly associated with online business because that's the world we live in.
Yeah. Okay. Fascinating. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. And I just posted the link to your class. We weren't planning on doing that, but just in case anybody is listening and is interested, since it closes today,
Yay.
put that there in the chat. So if anybody's interested in checking that out, just go ahead and click that link and you can learn more about Rachel's class, Spiritualized. And so also, Rachel, I know you are offering a beautiful free gift to the audience. To everyone in the audience, which is a guide to beginners astrology. Would you like to say a few more words about that one?
Oh yeah, Heartbeat. That was I wrote Heartbeat in, I think, my first year of business still, and it's really, really thorough. What I have to say about Heartbeat is that if you have ever wanted to learn how to study your natal chart, but in like through a text that's very respectful of your intelligence and your good taste, that's what Heartbeat was intended to be. A lot of beginner astrology books, I always felt, were kind of condescending because they use like this kind of sloppy magazine language, and they make everything seem kind of inaccessible and silly. And astrology is really fun and it's really beautiful, but it's not really silly. It's actually pretty deep stuff. So I wrote a beginner's guide to reading one's own natal chart to introduce people to the concepts, which are sometimes difficult to learn. Everybody has a place in that process that is difficult for them. Everyone's different. I've taught natal chart reading so much in class now that I see everybody has their own like blind spot in this study. But every chapter is very carefully written. It's very thorough. It's very clearly written, and it's filled with beautiful, beautiful art. So it's like fully illustrated. And so it's like gorgeous and a pleasure to look through. There's lots of exercises and little writing assignments and things like that for people to get in really deep. And you will learn every single level of basic natal chart reading. So if you use this free book, it's like 70 pages long with pictures. You'll actually be able to read your own chart, which is, I think, a very liberating and exciting thing. I learned to read my own chart before I had anybody else read my chart. And so anyone who wants to learn to read their own chart can do so with this book.
Awesome. Thank you for offering that. And we have testimonials coming up in the chat. Villamaine and Cynthia both said, I took Heartbeat and keep coming back to it. I loved it.
Oh, yay. I'm so glad. Yeah, I loved writing it, and it was it's a really, really nice free gift. You know, like a lot of times when we click on a free gift and get on someone's mailing list, they give you like, it's like a 2-page PDF, and you could tell that it was just to get you to sign up. And you're like, you feel kind of crestfallen, you know, there's a little disappointment. You're like, oh, I want more. I want to learn more. So this is like, it's a full book, you know, it's a book. It's not a PDF, 2-page PDF. It's a 70-page PDF.
Yeah, thank you. That's so generous of you. And I also want to note that you are offering an extra bonus gift for anyone who upgrades to lifetime access, which is a webinar on the principles of Hermeticism. Yeah. So would you like to say a few more words about that one as well?
Sure. The principles of Hermeticism is an exploration of the book called the Kybalion. Anybody who knows the law of attraction knows one of the principles of Hermeticism. There are actually 7. And so it's a webinar, a free webinar, where I do a slideshow lecture with beautiful pictures, as always, to go into and delve into these 7 laws of the universe that were identified by Hermetic philosophy. And the law of attraction is just one of them. So I think it's always really important, because that is something that's taken the world by storm, this idea that your thoughts create reality and positive thoughts create positive reality. It's not that simple. And I think we all know that. And that was a really big thing that I taught in both of my Mercury classes, because they deal with the mind. Positive thoughts, exclusively positive thoughts, are like an overly polarized way of living, and it's not really truly effective. That's not, it's not possible to always have positive thoughts. We want to cultivate optimism. We want to nurture positive thoughts, but to deny any negative thoughts creates a very big shadow and begins to manifest nothing but duality. So you might, with just the law of attraction, you will create your hopes and your fears. So even if you make the $1 million or you find the lover that you're looking for, there will also manifest at the same time the obstacle to destroy it, the shadow that begins to eat it up. And that's because the mind works that way. It's a dual hemisphere experience that we have here. Like, this is a dualistic world. So the law of attraction is overly simplistic, and it's just one of the 7. So when you look at all 7, you get a much bigger picture, a much more balanced picture, a much more holistic understanding of what these laws of the universe are all about. And so it's just a really good primer on magical philosophy.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for offering that.
Yeah.
And so I posted also a link to purchase lifetime access if you would like to get access to Rachel's extra bonus gift of the webinar on the laws of Hermeticism. So two fantastic gifts there. But yes, the Heartbeat guide, Beginner's Guide to Astrology, is completely free to everybody. So I hope everyone goes and claims that. It's really, really beautiful and amazing. Okay, well, thank you, Rachel, for all you have shared, and I want to open this up for Q&A now. So let me see. So for anyone who would like to ask Rachel a question or share something about your insights during this talk, please go ahead and raise your hand. You can just click on the hand icon that you see, or you can always ask questions in the chat as well. So Ibtisam, let me bring you over. Okay. Hi, Ibtisam. We can't see you yet, but we should be able to hear you. Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Hi.
What an amazing talk that was. I was feeling like a child in a candy store.
Oh,
Didn't
that's so
know, because I've really actually I've just recently kind of started understanding a little bit about my natal chart. I've never been into this. So it feels like, magic. Yeah.
It
And
is.
every time you were using that word magic, I was kind of having these amazing, beautiful shivers because of the way the whole day is gone. But 2 things really resonated. One is I'm working on a similar model, magic of intimacy. And you're so right, when you were just talking about this law of attraction and the shadow and the light component, because I was really trying to focus on the positive aspects of the relationship and bring them through. And having worked with my own shadow stuff, I wasn't incorporating that teaching into the model.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, oh my God, what am I doing? It just doesn't make sense. And no wonder I couldn't really birth it, because I wasn't doing the integration, the personal work that I'd gone through to the model. And it just sort of came alive. So, you just totally resonated right now what you're saying. Where there is light, there has to be shadow. And you don't have to fear it. You have just to kind of pay attention to that and say, I can see you, but you don't have to affect me anymore. So that felt really lovely. And the question I wanted to ask is, you were talking about this visibility, and so 2 things really intrigued me because, like Jocelyn, we were talking about it, like I've been wanting to birth this baby for a long time and feeling pregnant. And I'm like, what is this divine timing? Obviously, the baby is going to be born when the baby is going to be born. Can I do anything to sort of feed the labor? Can I eat some, how you actually can do that, right? You can eat some heaty stuff and kind of say, okay, maybe I'm going to give birth soon.
Yeah.
So one, I find that quite fascinating that, you can actually use this sort of natal chart reading to know when's an optimal time to give birth, which is I'm feeling very excited about.
Yeah.
The question was about the visibility thing, because you yourself mentioned, given that, you are so into this yourself, but you are actually realizing that there are times when you don't want to show up. And I'm quite fascinated with that. How does that work, and how do you align yourself to this?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I'm still kind of clumsy at it. Like, I did an interview for Dream Freedom Beauty a couple weeks ago to talk about Spiritualized, which is something I love, and I know the host Natalie pretty well, and we get along great. So there was no explanation as to why I got so nervous, but I got so nervous. I could barely breathe. My heart was pounding, and it doesn't make any sense. I just felt very shy that day, and I did not feel like talking to anybody. And it was not because of her. It's not because of the show. It's not the audience. And it's certainly not my product. I'm like very, very excited about it. So sometimes that just happens. I get overtaken by introversion, and you just have to push through anyway. But the thing that keeps me like in alignment with kind of going within and going out, I'd say the best is just this. I guess like I know that right now, Jupiter being in my first house is the time for me to push myself out. Sometimes I don't like it, but it's a part of growth, you know, and you do the way that we do things we don't like in devotion to something that we love. Like I really love my work. I really love the people that I teach and the people I read for. Genuinely, I have like so many cool people that I get to talk to all the time and connect with, that I just do it because I should. Last year, Jupiter was in my 12th house. And when you're having a big, long 12th house transit, you're supposed to be more introverted. You're supposed to be more secluded. You're supposed to take more time to have sanctuary. So I did that. I did that. There was quite a lot of hard things that happened last year. There was death. There was a death in our family. There was like a bunch of stressful stuff. And I took time off. I took time off from writing my weekly forecasts, which I had never done before. I went like 3 years straight without missing a week. And then I took off like a month to just be alone and not do anything. And then when I wrote Spiritualized, this class that I'm teaching at the end of the month, the first round, like I was writing it by the week and handing it out to the students, like as I wrote it. So I just decided, this is the only thing I'm doing right now. I'm just focusing on this one class, these people, and that's my job right now. So I took like a lot of cues from what was going on in my natal chart by transit to determine what was okay for me to actually allow myself to do. And it was really good. I regenerated a lot. I had just this small, like I had like 100 people I was focusing on, these students and this work. We were all healing together. And I was like, this is the only thing I need to be focusing on. I don't need to be doing interviews or talking out there or even writing articles. I took another time off. But right now, you know, that's not the time for that. So I've been pushing myself, and sometimes you just get really uncomfortable, you know. I did some Instagram live videos this week as well. And I actually hate being on camera. It's really funny. Jocelyn's the first person I ever interviewed with on camera, which is why I love her, because she made me comfortable enough, you know. You just got to like shake and shake and get through heart palpitations and just do it, you know, like just do it. And it also helps, just for your information, it helps. Where is your sun? What house is it in? What sign is it in? When you start examining like your own natal chart, you get an idea of where you're supposed to be seen, how you're supposed to be seen. And that gives you some information on what you should do. You know, like I have my house, my son in my 10th house, which never made sense to me. I used to think that meant, oh, I'm supposed to be a teacher. And I learned to handle that. That was really hard for me, but I learned to handle being in front of a classroom. But that's a far cry from cameras and the whole world, you know, or a stage, you know, like I don't like being in front of people, but my son says that I have to be seen. And it's weird. I've never met a 10th house sun person that wants that. It's just what happens. So you're like challenged to grow into your chart now. It's kind of like, you know, just the thing that you are supposed to grow into is often what you resist.
Yeah.
You know,
I really get that, because I think for me, it's very similar experience. Like I've always felt really I kind of feel when the limelight is on me, and I think Jocelyn, like exactly what you said, I call it Jocelyn's magic. But so many things started changing up, and even when she used to have these different summits, I remember I used to kind of feel kind of awkward to kind of go up or come visible, and again, like Jocelyn would say, no, just come, and I'm thinking, no, I feel I'm hogging the attention, or there'll be so many other people who have questions or whatever, and just keep quiet, just absorb what the learning, and don't ask. And then something started shifting as the summits went, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm going up. I'm going to ask my questions. I want to know more. And yeah, I just became hungrier and hungrier about this. So
good. Yep.
Visibility changed as well.
Yeah.
And, the question, it's almost like I don't understand this when you say 10,000, 11,000, all that. But I'll tell you what it does for me. And I don't know if that feels the same to people who don't understand astrology. It sounds like, when you're hearing a song in a different language and you have no clue what the words mean, but they feel right. That's actually how I'm feeling. I have no clue what you're saying, but it feels nice. It feels magical. It doesn't, it's kind of funny, that feeling.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use too much jargon.
No, it's lovely. But there is no other way of doing it. And what you say, that you're doing it pictorially, which I think is quite interesting. I'm quite intrigued what that would show up. I mean, yeah. You think you're using all pictures and all that. So maybe it's like astrology for kids.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
If you take Heartbeat, you'll understand all of it.
Yeah, true. Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Ibtisam. And yeah, always share. You're always speaking on behalf of many, many other people in the audience. So yeah, always share.
I love you so much, Jocelyn.
Yes, lots of love. Have a great day.
Bye.
Okay, wonderful. So anybody else who would like to ask Rachel a question, go ahead and raise your hand. And Rachel, there is a question in the chat that I think is important. So from Monique, when does Mercury in Virgo happen next?
Okay, Mercury will be in Virgo next. Let me get the exact date so you can actually
Thank you.
time, of course. It's going to happen in August, but let me get the exact dates. So Mercury transits are typically, unless he retrogrades, they are typically in 3 weeks long. So from the start date of any Mercury transit, you have about 3 weeks to work with Mercury. Let me see, exact date. I'm sorry, my head is so filled with dates right now. Okay, it's August 29th this year that Mercury moves into Virgo. August 29th until September 13th, like nighttime of September 13th. So that's a really fast one, actually. It's usually 3 weeks, but sometimes he picks up speed. Mercury does not have a super consistent speed. He's fast. He retrogrades, and sometimes he's slower, and sometimes he's faster. So this is a really brief transit of Mercury this year. And anytime Mercury's in Virgo now, I'm going to teach this class Elemental. So that will be around the time that August 28th or August 29th, either the day before or the day on the spot, 29th, will be the next round of Elemental for anybody who wants to take that class.
Awesome. And Monique is asking if you have any plans to teach spiritualized at a Europe-friendly time.
At a Europe, well,
it's recordings though, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, we have webinar meetings every week, and maybe that's not a Europe-friendly time, but the webinars are not required. There's recordings of all of them, and the lessons themselves actually are distributed as text and audio. So I send you the lessons, and then I also send you a recording of me reading the entire lesson, so that anybody who's like, I like to listen to things when I'm doing dishes and housework and stuff, or driving. And so anybody can digest this information by reading or listening. The webinar meetings every week, they're really nice to attend. It's like questions and answers and such, but they're not required. Not required. It's self-paced, self-study with support. So you can still take it even if you're in Europe. And what else did you say, Monique? People always get, okay.
Mercury retrogrades.
Mercury retrogrades. I can speak on that. People get really worked up about them. Indeed. I always have a free webinar at Mercury retrogrades because of this very problem. I have a student and now a friend named Joshua Burkhart of Paths of Transformation. And he's a hypnotist, hypnotherapist. And I always do a little talk, and then he provides a guided meditation to help people like harmonize with the period of Mercury retrograde. Because people get so freaked out. But I always teach that Mercury retrogrades are awesome. I really believe that they are. I love Mercury retrograde periods. The reason why people get freaked out is because Mercury does rule information exchange, technology, and other things like that. And when the planet moves backwards, it shifts the track that things are on. It shifts the focus that we're used to having into another realm. A lot of times it's described as things become more subconscious. We spend more time in the subconscious. There's more of a retrospective quality to it. There's a lot of swimming through memory. There's a lot of looking at the past. And this freaks people out only because we live in such a forward-moving, progress-obsessed time. If we just allowed things to like be more fluid and shift a little bit, then, which I have learned to do, Mercury retrogrades cause very few problems. They actually can be very creative times. You can turn inward. You can have more things from the past begin to weave into your reality. So a lot of learning is actually, it comes from the integrative process. Just like the pause that you need to actually process information is very important. And I think Mercury retrogrades are like that. That's like if you know yoga at all, that's the Shavasana, which is a super important part of yoga. You do all of these poses and all of this work, and then you lay down and you are still. And the stillness is actually when the body takes in that learning. It's very true of mental functions as well. We have to actually take a pause and sort of reflect. We need to reflect in order to integrate information. So Mercury retrogrades happen 3, sometimes 4, mostly 3 times a year. And those are really beautiful periods to integrate things. The other thing that I use this metaphor a lot because it bears repeating. If you think of Mercury as being symbolic of like the collective neural network, then we can look at the principle of neuroplasticity that we understand from human brains as being really important. Neuroplasticity is your ability to learn. It's your ability to be flexible. It's your ability to be responsive to new information and to actually make new neural networks and new connections. So when that shuts down in a person, neuroplasticity, then they become rigid, old, their brain begins to die. Sometimes they become senile. Sometimes they have Alzheimer's. These are terrible conditions. To be lacking neuroplasticity is a nightmare. To keep that going, old people are advised to continue painting, dancing, doing things with their hands, continue learning. Otherwise, you won't be able to learn anymore. Mercury retrogrades are like a way of keeping neuroplasticity flowing. And so the more that you feel dysfunction, malfunction, and difficulty coming down on you, the more rigid you have become. And that, like, those malfunctions are to wake you up to, like, necessity is the mother of invention. If the thing that you planned isn't working out, if the freeway shuts down, if your tickets don't go through, if miscommunication is happening, it forces you to be a little inventive. It forces you to get out of your rut. Yeah. And take another path. That's good. That's actually ultimately good. Having challenges arise, having difficulties with technology and things like that are positive thing. It keeps your brain healthy. And it's also, there's a slavish dependence on, technology right now. So I think Mercury retrograde's taken on a whole new dimension of like, maybe it's good that your phone didn't work that day. It may have inconvenienced you, but it's also like, maybe you said something in person, or you picked up the phone and called somebody when you wouldn't have, you would have texted, or maybe you spent the day reading on a book instead of a Kindle, you know?
So true.
Yeah. So I love Mercury retrogrades. I'm a big fan. I don't think they're a fearful time at all.
It's so funny. I've been creating these summits for a while now. And so the first 3 summits that I did, somehow they were all happening during Mercury retrograde. Right. And
Awesome.
I didn't have enough knowledge to like look ahead and see if that was going to be the case and everything. And there were all kinds of technical issues. It was amazing. But it made me very flexible. It gave me this attitude of, you know what, if Zoom doesn't work, it'll be all right. We'll record it at a different time. We'll do audio only, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it taught me a good lesson.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, I think the magical thing is that things from the past come up. It could be like intense, like someone you haven't seen forever shows up during Mercury retrogrades. Like that has happened to me many times, and other people too. So you get to work on stuff that is unfinished from the past, unfinished business. And that is often a wonderful thing. It's often wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank
This
you.
has been just fantastic to talk with you and hear these insights. And I know our audience is really enjoying it. So thank you so much for being a part of Fearless Female Entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Jocelyn. It was really fun. And thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for attending. And I don't know if I said this earlier, so let me say this now. So to claim Rachel's free gift, as I said, I put it in the chat here for those who are on live, but if you're watching this as a recording and you would like to claim her free gift, just scroll down a little bit below this video and you'll see the link right there to get Heartbeat. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, Rachel, and have a
You
wonderful
too.
day, everybody.
You too. Bye.